Alright, it's time for back to the basics, back when we just started the school year and we were learning some really basic terms. So you did a bunch of diagrams like we have right here, so let's just review a little bit of our Unit 1 vocabulary. So this one says, we're saying true or false, A, B, and H are collinear. So I have A, B, H. So collinear means those are on the same line. Are those on the same line? No. So those would be false. All right, let's look at the next one. I'm going to go down. B, C, and H are coplanar. Yes, that is true. Any 3 points are going to be coplanar. And you can see they kind of make the side of my rectangular prism there. All right. C lies on line M. So where are they labeling M for me? They're labeling M as this line right there. Is that true? Nope. All right. How about, does point A lie on line M? Yes, that's true. Is it true that E, J, and F are collinear? Yes, those are all on the same line. And last, plane A, B, C, D. Okay, so you can kind of think of it as the top of your box there. And plane B, C, F, H, so the side of your box, intersect at point B. So do those intersect at point B? Yes, that's true. All right, write 2 different correct notations for each of the figures. So what I notice here is that I have a segment. So a segment means I should have just a little short line, and we could say it in either order, E, F, or F, E. Looking at the next one, I have a ray. The ray, you have to start with your endpoint. So my endpoint in both of these needs to be K. It needs to have an arrow going to the right, and then you choose either of these letters. So I could do J, or I could also do H, but it needs to start with K and needs to have the little arrow going across from it. The next thing I notice is that I have a line, so we can do a lot of different combinations of letters, and there's more than 2 correct answers for this one. So with a line, you want to make sure that your notation has the arrows. Okay, and I could say that this is line AB. I could say it's line CB. I could say AC. There are a lot of correct answers. All right, now I have some angles. So I can name it with just one letter, which would be something like angle V. Or I can name it with 3 and do something like RVF. Remember, the important thing is that it traces the angle RVF. Then we started talking about segments after we did basic vocabulary. So it says if B is the midpoint of AC. Stop and draw a picture. B is the midpoint of AC. And AB is 2x plus 1, and BC is 3x minus 4. What is x? Well, since it was the midpoint, I know that these 2 segments are congruent, so I can set those 2 expressions equal to each other. And when I solve, I get that x equals 5, which answers the first question. And this says, what's the measure of BC? So I'm going to plug in that 5 over here. So 3 times 5 minus 4 would give me 11. Next it says that x is between W and Y. So draw your picture. X, W, Y. And they didn't tell me that this is the midpoint, so I really probably shouldn't have drawn it exactly like a midpoint, but that's okay. So it says WY is 21, WX is 2x plus 10, and XY is x minus 4. So here is where I have two parts that add together and give me a whole. So 2x plus 10 plus x minus 4 gives me a whole of 21. So 3x plus 6 equals 21, 3x equals 15, x equals 5, and it says find the length of each segment. Of course it does, so I'm just going to come over here, and 2 times 5 is 10 plus 10 is 20, and 5 minus 4 is 1. After segments, we looked at angles. Here's how an angle problem might look. Let Q be on the interior, that means inside, of POR. So let's draw. We have P, we have O, we have R, and they're telling me Q is somewhere on the inside. Use the angle addition postulate, that just kind of means use your brain with this one, to find the measure of each angle. So POQ is 3x plus 7. QOR is 5x minus 2. And then POR, the whole thing, is 61 degrees. So what am I going to do? Add up the blue and the red and equal it to the green. Alright, so 3x plus 7 plus 5x minus 2 equals 61. So 8x plus 5 equals 61. 8x equals 56. So x equals 7. And it said find the measure of each angle. Of course it does, so we're going to substitute that in. So 3 times 7 is 21, plus 7 is 28. And you have this wonderful thing called a calculator that can help. 5 times 7 is 35, minus 2 is 33. And just double check, yes, it does add to what it should have. Next it says find the measure of angle ABC if BD bisects. Yay, I get two congruent angles. Congruent, yay. Okay, if measure of angle 1 is 5x minus 11 and measure of angle 2 is 3x plus 5. Okay, so they gave me the two smaller angles that are congruent, so that means I can set them equal. But sometimes they try to be tricksy and they give you one of the small angles and then the big angle, and so you have to be really careful. Alright, now let's shift some stuff around. So I get 5 equals 2x minus 11. Add 11, I get 16 equals 2x, and x equals 8. And we want to find ABD. So 3 times 8 plus 5. So 24 plus 5 is 29. After doing problems with angles, we then looked at a bunch of stuff with segments and talked about doing length, distance, midpoint, endpoint, all that kind of stuff. So when it says find the length, that's talking about distance. A few of you know the distance formula, and that's fine, you do you. But we did it in class in a table. So that's what we're going to use here. So 2, 3, and 6, 7. And how do you go from 2 to 6? We add 4. How do we go from 3 to 7? Add 4. And this is where we used Pythagorean theorem, where we said this was A, so 4 squared plus, then we called this B, 4 squared equals C squared. So 16 plus 16 equals C squared. And we just left this as a square root. C equals the square root of 32. Then we did midpoint. Find the midpoint of the segment with endpoints M and N. So this is where we're going to find basically the average. We add the x values. So I have 8 and -2, and divide by 2. And then we add the y values, 9 plus 1, and divide by 2, and just do a bunch of simplifying. So 6 over 2, and 10 over 2, so 3 and 5. And last we had find the endpoint. So when I needed to find the endpoint, that's where I made my table, and I did E, M, E. So we put the endpoint they gave me, one endpoint at 3, 5. The midpoint is 7, 10. Okay, how do we go from 3 to 7? We go up 4. So I'm going to go up 4 again. And that gives me 11. How do you go from 5 to 10? Add 5. Do it again. 15. So my answer would be 11, 15.